lightning of his terrible swift sword, his truth is marching on.
It's the year of our Lord, 1832, as I write this, gentlemen, and I present myself to you as a respected and renowned judge and 14-year professor of law. I should be delighted to accept your kind invitation to come and address the Senate. Under President Jackson, we have become the first truly democratic country in the world. We have witnessed large political parties organized and holding national conventions, choosing their candidates for the presidency. We see free public schools established in most of the states. The majority of the people, not just a privileged minority, rule the federal government. The crucial question for you now is the Union as a whole stronger than any of its sections of states? That will determine the future of democracy. Majority rule of government means nothing unless the government can enforce the law.
Dear Mr. President, it is important that you let our American manufacturers sell their goods at prices below those from overseas. But we here in the South do most of our trading with England, and we strongly object to your so-called protective tariff over imported goods.
Sir, we here in South Carolina strongly maintain that Congress did not have the power to impose such a tax. Sir, and we will not obey this unjust law.
President Jackson stands ready to use the Army and Navy to enforce the law if necessary.
40 years ago, our cotton sales were going so poorly, we Southerners were ceasing to raise it and give up our slaves. But then Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, and cotton has become our most flourishing business. We need our slaves more than ever.
In the North, sir, your industries are growing, and you can hire free men. But you must understand that our whole economy in the South is based on slave labor. Our slaves, sir, are our most valuable property. You see how we keep them in excellent health. Certainly they're far better off than the men, women, and children who work in your overcrowded factories up north.
Senator John Calhoun pointed out to you, Mr. President, that high levels of culture and society can be attained only with the help of slavery. And he cites the glories of ancient Greece as an example. Surely you see this.
You must realize, gentlemen, that this freedom issue is nothing new. It arose in 1820, some 15 years ago, when Missouri asked to be admitted to the Union as a slave state. Had she been, the slave states would have had 2 more votes than the North in the Senate. You will recall that Congress worked out the Missouri Compromise, which let Missouri into the Union as a slave state, and let in Maine, which had been part of Massachusetts, as a free one. You continued this policy of pairing off states for admission, one free, one slave, with the entry of the next 6 states. Now this policy can no longer hold. You must consider making all states free.
You abolitionists, with your so-called Underground Railroad, are nothing but criminals, encouraging and keeping our slaves escape over secret routes to Canada.
My dear friends in Congress, I thank you for considering my correspondence over the years. You have set in motion, I feel, events which well could lead to a civil war. 20 years ago, you passed the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1834, written by Illinois Senator Stephen A. Douglas, which allowed settlers moving west to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery or not. And yet, now, the Supreme Court of the land has decreed Dred Scott, a slave, cannot be a free man because his master took him into free territory. May not Mr. Scott also be considered a settler? Regards.
Sir, these debates between Douglas and Abraham Lincoln have succeeded in rending this nation in two. John Brown and his abolitionists who captured the Army Supply Depot at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, are obviously agents of your Republican Party.
We cannot condone and will not abide by the wishes of your newly elected President Lincoln.
February 4th, 1861, Montgomery, Alabama. Following South Carolina's lead, we 7 states, listed herein below, hereby sign an agreement for a new nation to be called the Confederate States of America, with the Honorable Jefferson Davis to serve as president until an election can be held.
At last, we will be able to buy manufactured goods directly from Europe at much cheaper prices.
I foresee a great southern nation expanding southward, including Cuba and other islands in the Caribbean, Mexico, and perhaps even Central America. I see a South rising up a great slave empire, indeed like that of Greece, and reigning as one of the most powerful nations of the world.
We are certain you Northerners will not go to war with us over this secession. We anticipate no fight on your part to keep us in the Union.
Peter, I spoke with President Lincoln this morning. He realizes the North won't be united unless the South strikes first. Still, he intends to keep his promise to hold on to all federal property in the Confederate territory. He is today sending by ship food sorely needed by Major Robert Anderson and his men at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, and has so notified the Confederate governor there of this peaceful mission.
April 13th, 1861. Yes, Stephen, but in reply, the Confederates demanded the Northerners withdraw from the fort. Major Anderson refused. At 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 days ago, the Confederates began firing on the fort. Their cannons have hammered for 34 hours. Anderson has surrendered. Oh, my friend, a civil war has begun.
Virginia and 3 other states have joined the Confederacy.
We have won major victories at Bull Run and at Richmond.
There is no question but that the Union will win this war, Peter. We have a population of 22 million to the South's 9 million, and 3.5 million of them are Negro slaves. We have twice as many railroads, roads, and canals as they. Our great industrial centers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, turning out arms, munitions, and supplies for our army. The South lacks any such factories.
Our Union Navy is now powerful enough to blockade southern ports. The Confederates are finding it not so easy importing goods from Europe.
We were counting on England and France to break the North's blockade and enter the war on our side. But it appears they need the North's wheat as much as they need our cotton.
Dear friend, today President Lincoln issued a proclamation freeing the slaves.
We have suffered our most costly defeat at Gettysburg. Unable to stand against their cannons, I fear this may be the turning point of the war.
Vicksburg has fallen. The North now has complete control of the Mississippi.
We have lost at Chattanooga, Atlanta, Savannah, Columbia, Charleston.
Oh, this dreadful war has gone on for more than 4 years. The South, as we knew it, is completely destroyed.
Lee and our valiant men are desperately trying to keep Grant from taking the Confederacy capital at Richmond.
Lee and his 30,000 men are in retreat.
April 9th, 1865. Stephen, Lee has just surrendered to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The war between the states is over.
Gentlemen, both North and South someday will realize the importance of this moment. It means much more than the end of slavery, much much more than the preservation of the Union. It proves that democracy is a practical form of government, that nationalism and freedom can prevail against rebellion. My regards to you all as you carry on the work of governing this blessed nation.
When everything you had is in ruins, when everything you loved and believed in has been trampled down, where and how do you begin again? Please, please tell me.